right, episode 14, and today we're talking about the Arctic wolf, which, believe it or not, I don't have that much information on, and we will discuss why very shortly. However, as per usual, we are setting up our blueprints so that we can make our exhibit to the shape and size we'd like. However, before I get into the animal, let's actually start with the exhibit. We are going to be doing something quite interesting. That is a cavern or valley, and it is based on an actual picture I found from Nunavut, Canada. And I hope it comes out as pretty as I think it is. So, let's talk about the animal as I set up the walls of our cavern. Now, here's the big reason on why I am so lacking on information about the Arctic wolf. Quite simply, it's not its own species of wolf. Yes, the Arctic wolf is actually just a subspecies of the Canadian gray wolf, or otherwise known as the timber wolf here in North America. So, quite simply, there's not a lot of specific information about this animal that wouldn't also apply to the gray wolf, which, since it's in this game, I don't want to divulge too much into. Now, that doesn't mean it's completely devoid of information. For example, we have the obvious aspects that it is always white, unlike the timber wolf, which can change color based on the time of year. Due to the location that these animals reside in, they are always white all year round. And they are actually smaller than the average timber wolf. To sort of pad out the information, let's talk about what I'm doing. So, this is a tactic I have started to implement when it comes to making walls for animal enclosures. And the point here is it's kind of hard to make a smooth surface using just the rocks, and that's mostly because the only stones that have that smooth side to them are some of the largest ones, which take up too much space. So, if you would like to make a stone wall, turning flat stones horizontally is a great way to do it. However, it is kind of annoying because there's no 90-degree snap for a lot of these stones. However, if done properly, you would be able to make quite an interesting outlay, and I am adding snow to the top to give it more of a Arctic feel, and I'm actually going to make the viewing port a glass wall in the stone itself. So you could, if you wanted, to make this something similar to a viewing port from an indoor enclosure looking outward. Now, back to the wolf. There is one other interesting physiological difference between the Arctic wolf and the average timber wolf, and that is that their skulls have been getting increasingly thinner and smaller than their southern brethren, and that's been documented ever since the 1930s. So there is evolution going on with these animals, but it's still considered a subspecies of gray wolf. Now, let's get into their environment, and the environment is not just the Arctic Circle, it's actually much, much more specific. As a matter of fact, the Arctic wolf can only be found in the archipelago of Nunavut, also known as Queen Elizabeth Islands. And the reason that they're on quote-unquote islands is because all the water surrounding it is made of ice. And because of their stone and ice environment that they reside in, they are actually one of the few wolves that will primarily bed down in rock formations like we're going to make here. And that means if you have one of those pre-made wolf dens that look like they're on the side of a mountain, perfect time to use it. While other wolves may make some sort of den or burrow, in that area, it's pretty much impossible for the Arctic wolf to do so. Now, an interesting fact that we are going to ignore while making this video is they live in a section of the world that is north of what is known as the Northern Tree Line. Essentially, it means that they are found in areas where trees are incapable of growing. And we are ignoring that for this game because it looks better. And if the game's going to let us cheese it and have the taiga environment and not just the tundra environment, well, sometimes fashion's a bit more important than function, right? Right, let's just pretend. Anyway, they are actually a least concerned species. However, their population has fluctuated quite a bit in the past, well, since we've known of them. And pretty much it all depends on how the climate is currently doing. If the temperature goes up, then a lot of their prey will not survive in the Arctic Circle because it would be too warm, or the water would melt and it would sort of strand them. And when your prey is gone, the predators soon follow after. Their most common prey are Arctic hare, caribou, and muskoxen. And you can actually pretty directly tell the Arctic wolf population with the muskox population. If the muskox are doing fine, the Arctic wolf will also be. If it isn't, same end. Now, what I'm currently doing in the exhibit is adding a bit of an aesthetic addition, and that is to have a central stone outcropping and dirt paths. So usually when animals will move throughout their environment, they won't just walk wherever. There will be something that, at least in my area, is known as a deer path, because that's the most common perpetrator. But every animal will have some form of path that they naturally make because they continuously make their way through there. So adding some form of dirt path to show the common routes of these animals is a great way to add some character to the environment. Now, their scientific name, Canis lupus arctos, was given to them by Reginald Pocock in 1935, literally translating to dog, wolf of the Arctic. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because he gave the name to the Amur leopard, which we discussed in that video. Now, it is important to note that he had also named the Greenland wolf as its own subspecies, not being the same as the standard Arctic wolf. So, if your local zoo has a Greenland wolf, believe it or not, it is not the same as an Arctic wolf, despite the fact that it looks almost one-to-one. Now, why did it take until the 1930s for someone like Pocock to finally recognize this animal as something different? Well, the area they live in is extremely remote. Even to this day, barely any people interact naturally with the Arctic wolf. As a matter of fact, so little people interact with it that they have no fear of humans. Or at least, it's sort of put on the wayside. As a matter of fact, they've been known to approach humans with curiosity and intrigue, most notably on the island of Ellesmere, which unfortunately also leads to them being one of the few wolves that are willing to attack people almost unprovoked, since how they aren't aware just how dangerous we are. Now, this lack of fear had led to quite a few incidents throughout history, including in 1977, where a pair of scientists were actually shadowed and attacked by wolves. Both of them survived, from what I can tell, and only left with a slight graze. However, the same cannot be said for the small town of Alert Nunavut, where there have been constant wolf attacks due to the close proximity of the animals. And as we come to an end of the information, all we have left now is the cultural influence, and unfortunately, due to their remote nature, there's only one culture I could find that specifically would indicate them as being the influence. And that would come from the Netselik Inuit people, where the sea woman, Nuliayuk, has wolves that guard her home from trespassers. And as you can see, we are about to break that north of the tree line rule again because the game said we can. And that's really all that matters. Despite it not being technically accurate, if you notice in your real life zoos, there aren't specific trees from specific places. It's whatever the local foliage is. So it's not too outrageous for us to add a couple of trees to this environment. Unfortunately, we have reached the point where I am completely out of information about the animal. As I had stated, being a subspecies of the gray wolf means that I can't add too much without, quite honestly, just going through the entire Timberwolf video. So, with that being said, let's jump into the exhibit. So, what I'm currently doing is I'm adding snow rocks to give a more accurate portrayal of something like a stone outcropping being covered with large quantities of snow. Now, it is important to note that because they are wolves, and that being a form of canine, you're going to want to make sure that there's plenty of enrichment tools so that our nice furry friends can enjoy their time in their new exhibit. Now, of course, seeing how they are an Arctic animal, if you do plan to have them in your zoo, I would definitely recommend keeping them close to the other tundra and or taiga animals. That way, they can sort of use the local cooling systems as their own. And as we reach the end of the video, I do want to say thank you for watching. I had cut out all of the extra little bit of terrain modifications I had to make for the animal. Quite honestly, it wasn't too much to do. It was just add some more stone, get rid of some grass, and honestly, that wasn't necessary, especially since I'm out of information, and there's no point in keeping you guys here longer than you need to be. So, I would like to thank you for watching. I know this one probably wasn't the greatest of videos, but if you did enjoy it, please leave me a like. If you have any extra information, feel free to let me know. And I will see you guys in the next episode where we jump from the North Pole and head all the way down to Southeast Asia with the Asian small-clawed otter. Alright, have a good day, go outside, goodbye.